Hello, everybody. Namaste, Tashi Dele. Good morning, good evening. I hope everybody's good. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about something that is really obvious for all of us because it's called impermanence. And all of us are living impermanence on a day-to-day basis, right? So there's nobody anywhere that hasn't experienced impermanence, which is another way of saying this is change. So I actually have some quotes that I can share with you guys to explain impermanence, okay? And I'm going to read some of these quotes with you to provide education and feelings about what impermanence means. Now, one of them is from a great master called Longchenpa. Before I read this, just to be clear, everybody sort of knows what impermanence is. It is the reality that nothing is stable. Everything from body and mind is constantly changing. All physical matter is constantly changing. The seasons change, our bodies change. We go from being a baby to being a toddler, to being able to walk, to being a teenager, to being an adult. Eventually we get sick and die. There's nothing but constant change everywhere you look. Now, we make the mistake of, through ignorance, of thinking that things are stable and that things are going to last, but they don't last. And oftentimes that causes us a lot of pain and suffering. So it's really important for us to understand reality. And one of the main attributes of reality is impermanence. So as I mentioned, I'd like to read a handful of quotations from masters that will provide a certain feeling and give you something to contemplate. And one of the things that you could do is, if you like, you could close your eyes and listen and contemplate these points, or you could take notes and later on you can meditate on some of these points because they're very powerful. The first quote is from Longchenpa. The book is called A Treasure Trove of Scriptural Transmission. And the quote is this: "Within mind itself, there is no cessation. Impermanence arises naturally as the cause of this cessation, and so the manifestation of what has no independent nature is perfect, as though, for example, in a dream." So to distill this down to a very simplistic understanding, the way that I see it is that every mental state that we experience, whether it's happiness or sadness, every physical state that we experience, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, maybe we feel very powerful and strong and healthy, or maybe we feel very sick and weak. All of these things are subject to change. So from the mental perspective, whatever emotional feeling you happen to have right now, whether it's a good mood or a bad mood, whether it's you're very happy with what's going on or you're very sad, maybe it's anger, jealousy, whatever mental feeling we have, it's subject to change. It will dissolve on its own. It's only a matter of time. The question is how we interact with it. If we take it to be real and we think it's going to last forever, that's going to create us to take additional actions that will create more and more harm. The key is being able to look at what's arising for us. And this is not always easy, but the key is being able to look at what's arising for us and to just let it dissolve, because it will dissolve, because everything's impermanence. And if you really contemplate impermanence, eventually you'll come to the conclusion there's no real reason to get too high or to get too low. There's no reason to get too excited because it's impermanent. And there's no reason to get too sad because you also know that that's impermanent. So really this brings a level of wisdom about reality into our lives. I want to read another quote by Ajahn Chah, the great Thai forest master. Um, Consider a lump of ice. Originally, it was simply water. You freeze it and it becomes ice. But it doesn't take long before it's melted. Take a big block of ice and leave it out in the sun. You can see how it dissolves, much like the body. It will gradually disintegrate. In not many hours and minutes, all that's left is a puddle of water. This is called the decline and dissolution of all compounded things. When we are born, we bring this birth and death with us. So Ajahn Chah was really explaining that our bodies are like a lump of ice. A lump of ice, originally it was water. The right causes and conditions came about and made it freeze, which was the temperature and so forth, came and made it freeze. By the way, it didn't just freeze on its own. There was a cause. Everything is dependent in this world. There's no such thing as causeless phenomena. Everything that arises based on a cause and conditions. So water becomes ice because of cold temperatures. And then ice melts due to warm temperatures. Our human bodies arise due to causes and conditions. Our parents, for example. And then we grow up, and then eventually we die due to causes and conditions, which in this case, the main cause and condition of everything arising and deteriorating or arising and falling is in fact impermanence. The key takeaway here is that for me, it's important to contemplate death because we're all going to die. Many of us have a great deal of fear about it. I personally have struggled with anxiety for my whole life. And I've had bouts of where the anxiety goes away if I'm practicing meditation. And I've had bouts where it comes back. And the key is understanding that nothing lasts. And we just have to contemplate this and we have to accept it. Because once you accept it, it's like my teacher, Geshe Jimpa Sonam, told me last week. I said, you know, how do people get over the fear of death? What are some pointers? And he told me that there's a great master named Shantideva. And Shantideva said, if you have a solution to a problem, there's no need to be worried because you've got a solution. So if a problem can be solved, just go ahead and solve it. There's nothing to worry about, essentially. If a problem cannot be solved, there's nothing to worry about because there's nothing you can do. And gosh, that is so powerful and so simple. And it just puts into perspective how people like me overthink everything. I overthink everything and it's unnecessary. There's no benefit. There's no benefit to being scared of death because it is going to happen. And we would be much better served to just contemplate it and understand it could come at any moment. And therefore we should use it to make our lives more meaningful. Maybe you spend a few less hours a week watching Netflix and a few more hours a week meditating and doing spiritual work because it will pay big dividends. The next quote I want to share is from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. He wrote a book called The Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones. It's a wonderful book. He says, whatever is born will die, whatever is gathered will be dispersed, whatever is joined together will come apart, whatever goes up will fall down. Not long ago, your consciousness was wandering alone, swept along by karma. It took this present birth. Soon, like a hair pulled out of butter, leaving everything behind, you'll go on again alone. I want to read one more from him. Be careful. A powerful enemy is approaching, not an ordinary enemy, but an invincible one, death. No plea, however eloquent, can persuade death to hold off for a few years or for a second. Not even the most powerful warrior at the head of all armies on earth can make death turn a hair. Death cannot be bribed by wealth, however vast, nor stirred by even the most enchanting beauty. So that's something pretty powerful. And again, you know, I don't want anybody to think that I'm sharing these teachings to scare everybody. That's not the point, okay? The point is not to create more anxiety. We all have enough anxiety during the COVID era. But it is important to understand reality. Maybe reality's not so pleasant. Maybe reality isn't necessarily what we want. You know, Americans and people in the West don't really like to talk about death. I don't know if this is worldwide, but people don't really love to talk about death. And one of the reasons is a lot of us have this false, unspoken, almost subconscious belief that we're going to live forever. And a lot of people have talked about this. They knew that they would die, but they didn't really know in their heart. They didn't really know they were going to die. And we really have to think about this because death is imminent. It's completely imminent. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we know beyond the shadow of a doubt, we're going to die. We're going to pass on. And there's a teacher called Togmi Zangpo, and he says, consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. And the full quote, I think, is great friends who have long been together will part. Wealth created with great difficulty will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. And so there's this idea that our bodies are like a hotel or a guest house. And at some point in the future, our consciousness will leave this body and go on and take on a new birth. And the key is we have to ask ourselves, what do we really want to do with our time here on earth? We have been blessed with what we call a precious human reincarnation or a precious human life. We have the ability to spend our time pretty much any way we want. Most of us have the mental faculties and a level of intelligence that would allow us to practice spiritual work, such as the Holy Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, or whatever your spirituality is. It's fine. The point is we have the opportunity and the chance. Some people call this a golden opportunity. We have the chance to practice something very meaningful while we're here. And so we really should ask ourselves, do we want to squander that? And the Dharma is something that can bring us happiness in this very life, at this very moment. You know, cultivating the mind of love and compassion, understanding impermanence, cultivating the mind of kindness and generosity. These are things that will make us happy and everybody else happy. But more importantly, from a Buddhist perspective, karma, we can purify past negative karma and cultivate positive future karma by again and again contemplating these realities. Impermanence is so powerful because no matter what's going on, no matter how bad things are for you, they will inevitably pass. No matter how dark each night is, tomorrow there will be a brighter day. So another quote, although we love ourselves so dearly, we have no idea at all where to find real happiness. We are about as incapable of looking after ourselves as a lunatic. We search for happiness in pleasure, fame, and wealth, oblivious to the fact that death will soon take all these things away. When we cross the threshold of death, we will not be able to take with us even one of the possessions we have worked so hard to obtain. At the most, all of our strenuous exertions may have produced, may have produced, my quote was messed up. Anyway, that was Dogo Khyentse. So the bottom line is, just to summarize what he was saying, since I was having a technical difficulty with my quote, the bottom line is we're pursuing all of these things like the comforts of this life, and I'm guilty of it. We're all doing this, and fame, happiness, fame, wealth, reputation, that we call these things the eight worldly dharma. So happiness and unhappiness, material gain and loss, good or bad reputation, and then praise or blame. Those are the eight worldly dharmas, and those are worldly things you're chasing. And really, just you could distill it down to the comforts of this life. And no matter how hard we work at acquiring these things, you can't take any of them with you when you die. What we believe in Buddhism is that you can take your karma, and that's the only thing you really take with you. You take your mind stream and you take your karma, and your karma is embedded in your mind stream. And everything you've ever, every thought, speech, or action you've ever had creates the cause for a future result. And there's tons of books on what's called NDEs, near-death experiences, and go to Amazon, go to any bookstore and do a search for near-death experiences. You will find thousands of verified cases. And many medical doctors have actually studied near-death experiences. One guy named Mooney, he was kind of the original. I think his name's Mooney or Moody. He was the original, and then several other books have come out. And if you analyze near-death experiences, you'll come to the conclusion that when we die, we go on. Our mind goes on. Many near-death experiences have one of the commonalities is people rise out of their body. The consciousness rises out of their body and can see everything going on in, for example, the operating room that they're in. And they've been able to recall things later on that they only would have been able to know if they were lucid and aware. Even blind people, when they have near-death experiences, sometimes have experiences of seeing what's going on, and then they later on can recount the exact situation with specific precision. And so if you research near-death experiences, you will come to the conclusion that we live on. And that's why Dharma is interesting, because you start to talk about impermanence, and then you really can't not talk about the precious human life and karma and samsara and all of these things. They're all coupled together. But the bottom line that I really want to drive home here is that we are going to die, and we are going to take our karma. One of the things that the near-death experience people had, one of the commonalities across thousands of these guys, is that when you die, you have a life review. And during that life review, you see and experience everything you've done, and you also experience how it impacted others. So if you're constantly harming others, you are going to have to experience it later. It's going to come back, and you're going to experience the pain, every bit of pain you've ever caused. We all are. And it's inescapable, and the only thing we can do to change it is to start purifying all of these eons of negative karma. And this, one of the powerful aspects of impermanence, beyond the fact that it's just the nature of reality and it brings a level of wisdom to us, but beyond that, one of the powerful aspects of impermanence is the truth that we are going to die. We don't know when, but we know that when we die, we're going to have to experience all of the karma we've ever created. And if we want to start having an impact on that karma for the future, we really should practice spirituality. And I believe Dharma is a wonderful path. It's very scientific. And not only that, if you start practicing spirituality, you can have happiness in the here and now. Your mind will change week to week, month to month, year to year. Your mind will change. It takes time for all of us. We all have different propensities, different mental habitual patterns, which, by the way, is pretty much karma. Our mental functioning and habitual thought patterns, they're just karmic results. The way we think, the way we act builds these little imprints in our mind, and then we continue to think and act that way. Dharma teaches us to change that. So impermanence, again, is very powerful because it will give us a chance to think about the fact that our time here is limited and really contemplate the question, do we want to change the outcome that we're going to experience when we die? Okay. To me, I would say that's one of the most important things any of us could think about. Another quote from Dromtampa from the Book of Kadam. Life is transient like a flash of lightning in the sky. The moment we are born, our lives are marked for disintegration. I see my own life to be the same. So do not rest, but extract the essence of this body. What he's saying when he says extract the essence of this body is to make your life meaningful by practicing spiritual practices like meditation, contemplation, analysis of impermanence. Sit down and analyze impermanence. But generally speaking, the moment you're born, death is also born. It's just a question of when. Anything that arises must fall. So therefore, we would be wise to take time to start to analyze impermanence and to extract the essence of this body. He's essentially, his quote sums up what I've been talking about for the last 5 or 10 minutes much better than I could. So last quote I have is another quote from Drum Tampa, from the Book of Kadam. Drum Tampa was one of the early Kadampa masters in Tibetan Buddhism. That kind of predates most of the 4 lineages right now. And Atisha was one of the masters to bring Buddhism from India to Tibet, and Drum Tampa was his chief disciple. There's a book called the Book of Kadam, a very powerful book. Here's another quote from Drum Tampa. Life is transient like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. Unable to withstand even the tiniest adversity, it swiftly dries up. I see my own life to be the same, so forswear strong grasping at permanence and meditate upon impermanence in 4 sessions. So the 4 sessions are morning, afternoon, evening, and night. And essentially what Drum Tampa is saying is really, once again, a way more aptly summarizes all of the things I've been sharing with you. Essentially, there's no way to escape impermanence. It is just the nature of reality. It is what's going on moment to moment in our lives. Each moment, according to Buddhism, I think each moment has like 1,000 sub moments or something. I forget what the exact number is, but each mind moment has a lot of sub moments. And we're changing not only moment to moment, but millisecond to millisecond. We're changing. Our bodies are deteriorating. Everything around us is deteriorating. The device that you're using right now to watch this video, whether it's an iPhone, Android, iPad, or a computer or whatever, that device will only last for a period of time. It won't last forever. Computers always, you buy them and they're new and then they die. Okay. So everything is impermanent. If you're healthy right now, you will eventually be sick. If you're sick right now, you'll eventually be healthy. If you're happy right now, eventually you'll be a little less happy. If you're unhappy right now, eventually you'll be happy again. Nothing lasts. So the ultimate freedom is impermanence, because you know that you don't have to take things so seriously because none of it lasts. This doesn't mean things aren't important, because as I mentioned before, we are going to die and we are going to be reborn. Even pretty much every religion, Buddhism believes in reincarnation, Buddhism and Hinduism, and I think Jainism as well. Christianity, I don't know about Islam and Judaism, as I'm certainly not an expert, but I know Christianity, just because I've grown up in America, Christians believe that you die and you either go to heaven or hell. And a lot of that is dependent on your karma in this life, what you do, what kind of deeds you engage in. And so there's not really a religion where we don't believe in the impermanence of this life. We all pretty much agree wholeheartedly that we're all going to die and there is an afterlife. I don't think there's any religion that believes you just die and you don't go on. So there is an afterlife, and therefore we should use this time, this golden opportunity, to produce love, compassion, kindness, generosity, appreciation, gratitude, joy, gentleness. We should do everything we can to help each other, to educate each other, to uplift each other. And impermanence is something that we just have to accept because it's the law of reality. So I dedicate the merit of this Dharma teaching to all precious sentient beings. As a result of whatever merit arises during this teaching, may every sentient being, may their body, speech, and mind be completely purified, and may they be delivered to perfect, complete, inexpressible Buddhahood. So I dedicate the merit. And I wish all of you, my deep hope and aspiration is that all of you who watch this are motivated to practice the Dharma and to make your life meaningful. Okay? Take care of yourselves. Bye. Love you all.